Hey guys, so I wanted to share what I think is an interesting story with you all. So you're probably wondering why I'm dressed like this. Thursdays are my volunteer days. For you guys that know me, you'll know that I volunteer at 2 different charities on a Thursday. So this is my uniform. This is for the breastfeeding group that we run on a Thursday, and the charity that I volunteer for on a Thursday morning is taking children with additional needs swimming. I've been doing both of these for 7 years and I absolutely love it. Anyway, so that's the outfit. So I want to tell you a story. You'll already know some of this, but not all of this. I don't think I've ever shared this, to be honest. So just to take you up to speed, I used to work at Specsavers, which I know many of you know. That was my career. Absolutely loved what I did. And then we had a massive curveball thrown into our lives when my youngest daughter had a brain hemorrhage and a stroke, which obviously massively pulled the wind from beneath our feet, kind of thing. And she spent a long time in hospital trying to recover. Eventually was discharged, but when she was discharged, she still had like fits and seizures. She needed like speech and language, physiotherapy. So I ended up having to fold on my career. Basically, I had to say to Specsavers that I wasn't going to be able to return back to work. My daughter needed all of my time, so there wasn't any extra time to do a job. And so I left Specsavers 7 years ago, and I actually went on to benefits, so government help, for a couple of years, just to try and like recoup that kind of like lost income. My husband, bless his heart, he was working 7 days a week just to try and bring in that lost income. As a family, we just couldn't survive on his typical income alone. He was working overtime, literally running himself into the ground. And as a family of 4, it put so much stress and strain onto us. So this is where the story begins now. So that's kind of like painted the picture. So I was suffering really badly with depression and anxiety at the time, really, really badly. If anyone's ever, feel free to say if you have ever had like depression, anxiety, it's one of the worst things. It's literally like, it's like you're drowning and nobody else can see that that's happening. It's awful. And I was complaining on Facebook one day about the situation in my life. Now, this is what scared me the most. So this is what I've never shared with anybody. Now, this is what really, really, really frightened me to the point where I was not able to sleep. I was having like hot sweats. I was feeling sick. So this is what scared me. And it's got a term. It's called the sandwich. Okay, it's called the sandwich. So this is what I mean by this. So share this if you can relate. So the sandwich generation, okay, are the people who are caring for a younger generation. So it might be their children, it might be their grandchildren, stepchildren. They're caring for a younger generation. So they may be taking them to school, they may be going to playgroups. So they're looking after a younger generation. But they're also looking after an older generation, and that might be their parents or their grandparents, or they're looking after somebody older, or an auntie and uncle. So the sandwich generation are the people looking after a younger generation and an older generation, and they're smack bang in the middle. And what's happened is their parents, or whoever it is that's older than them, they didn't know any different. When they were in their adulthood, they didn't have the opportunities that we have now in the 21st century. They didn't have them. They were working in the industrial age. They went to school. They went and worked the same job for 40, 50 years and they retired. So there was no plan B incomes. There was no like entrepreneurs as such like there is now. There wasn't people like creating these like multiple income streams. And people only do as much as what they know. You can only do as much as what you know. So we know more, we can do better, but they didn't, okay? They didn't know. So what's happened is in our generation now, a lot of people are stuck in a sandwich where they're looking after these 2 generations. And it is what it is because we want to give back to our parents or the older ones, and we want to share that appreciation with them. And they haven't got any other choice, so it is what it is. But what scared me is my children being in that sandwich situation. My children. I've got 2 girls. Comment how many children you've got and how old they are, if you have any. The next generation deserves so much better. They deserve so much better. Now, I remember lying in bed at night thinking, this is not fair for my kids to become adults and be stuck in the same financial shitstorm that people are facing now, because I didn't make better choices with my life when the opportunities are out there. The older generation didn't have the opportunities that we have now, but we have them now. So when I was complaining about this on Facebook, my friend, didn't really know her that well, Emma, she messaged me and she said, I want to tell you about this opportunity. Now, as soon as I heard that, I was all ears, because I'm the sort of person, I'm really open-minded. So I was like, yep, tell me. I drove to meet her the next day. The very next day, I drove to meet her with both my kids in the car. And I walked into a house, and she made me a coffee, and I remember sitting there, and I didn't know what she was going to say. I had no idea. Just knew she was going to tell me about this opportunity. But I remember feeling like this was the first day of the rest of my life. I just remember sitting there, and I had this coffee that she'd made from a coffee machine that she'd bought. And I remember thinking that whatever Emma has got to tell me, it's giving me butterflies. And I feel like it's the next chapter of whatever is going to be happening for me in the next 5-10 years. So she sat there and she said, Danny, have you ever heard of Arbonne? And I said, no, because I'd never heard of Arbonne, never heard of it. And she said, okay, Danny, have you ever heard of network marketing? And I sat there and I baffled. I was like, no, never heard of that. And she said, are you aware that there's toxins in products that cause like long-term damage? You know, like the rise in disease, the rise in ailments, the rise in skin conditions, the rise in cancers. Like, are you aware that these nasty toxins in products are linked to these like problems that people are having later on in life? And I remember sitting there and thinking, no. And I felt a little bit confused because I thought I'm the sort of person, maybe not now, but I was the sort of person that used to think if something was bad, the government wouldn't allow it. Call me naive, but that 5 years ago, that genuinely was what I thought. I was like, no. And I said to Emma, but I have lupus, so an autoimmune. My husband's got chronic fatigue, also an autoimmune, and both my kids have got severe eczema. So when she was saying this, I could already feel like the cogs were starting to turn. And those butterflies in my stomach at whatever she was going to be telling me, I was almost like leaning forward to listen more. I was like, tell me more, without actually saying it. And I felt like she was about to hand me a massive gift. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I felt like this gift was about to be passed to me. And she said, so Danny, there's this company called Arbonne. It's been around for 40 years. So as soon as she said 40 years, I thought, okay, if I am going to get involved with whatever it is that she's going to talk about, I love the fact that it's a long term. It's a company that's been around for a long time. And she said to me, all the products that they make, it's over 500 products, all the products that they make are plant-based. They're made out of fruit, vegetables, herbs, sea ingredients. You could basically eat the products. They're food graded. They're that clean. They're free of all the toxins. There's no nasties. They're not tested on animals. They're vegan. They're gluten-free. They're kosher, like blah, 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 blah. And I could feel myself just smiling because I still didn't quite know what it was that she was going to be telling me, but I knew I wanted to get involved. I knew it. You know, like when they say like I had me at hello, like I don't know if you remember like meeting your partner, or when you give birth to your baby, the first time you give birth to your baby and they have you at hello and you just feel this surge of just pure ecstatic joy. That was how I felt hearing what she was saying. Everything was ticking every single box. And she said to me, because these products are so good, they don't sell them in shops, because like you probably know, when something's sold in a traditional retail route, when something's sold like through a shop route, they pay for the advertising, they pay for the wholesale, they pay for this, they pay for this, they pay for this. It goes up like 80%. And I was like, yeah, I knew that. I'd worked for Specsavers. I know the profit margins. Sorry to say that if any of you wear glasses, the profit margins are massive. I'd worked in pubs and restaurants as well, so I know that when you pay £10 for something, it really costs pence to make. So I was like, yeah, I get that. And she said, so none of the products are sold in shops. Now that means they can make these high-end products, but actually make them affordable prices. There's not a case of this is the cost of the product, but this is how much we're going to sell it for. They're like more like on par. And she said to me, the products only move through a word of mouth referral. So people like you and I, we buy the rights to our online business franchise, if you like, and we get our own special website. And if you recommend a product, then you get paid for it. And she said to me, you do know that 80% of anything that anybody buys, so any sales that are ever made in the whole of the world, 80% of sales of anything are made through word of mouth. Now, I couldn't have told her the actual statistic, but I was pretty much aware that it was a high statistic. Like, I know that word of mouth referral is where it's all about, isn't it? And a lot of companies are trying to make more of their products available to people, but they know that they haven't got the same stories that we can tell. Like when we use products in our own bathroom and in our own dressing table and in our own home, we can tell a story about what the product has done for us on a personal level. And people want to hear that. They don't want to hear about a celebrity that's been paid to endorse it. Like, you know, let's get an amen, sister. That's exactly as it is. Like we all want to watch a movie based on a recommendation, buy a book based on a recommendation, eat at a restaurant based on a recommendation, book a holiday based on a recommendation. We are not in tune to adverts anymore because we know they're pretty much a load of hoo-ha. So when she was saying this, I was like, I'm in. And she looked at me and she went, what? I said, I'm in. And she goes, I haven't even told you how much it is yet. I was like, I don't care, I'm in. She could have told me it was £3,000, and although I didn't have £3,000, I didn't even have like £30, I would have found a way, because I knew from that moment on her sofa, I was sat on her sofa with that coffee that she'd made me from that coffee machine. I knew that this was going to stop my children being in the sandwich generation situation. I knew at that absolute moment that if I said yes to this business and I put my heart and soul into this business for 5 years, I knew that I'd be able to face my children when they're adults and say, look at what I created when you were a child. The alternative, when I was sat there on that sofa and it flickered into my head, the alternative is I would have said no to the opportunity, and life would have carried on as it was, and my children would have been adults, and we would have been in mammoth debt, and my children would have been caring for their children and me and my husband as elderly people, and the burden of that and the burden of the debt. And I thought, I cannot look my daughters in the eyes as adults knowing that they've got this giant burden that they're living with. I cannot look them in the eyes and say to them, there was opportunities for me when I was an adult, and I didn't take those opportunities because I was too busy watching Netflix, because I was too scared to talk to people, because I had too much fear about a franchise, a business that I didn't know how it was going to pan out. I knew in that flicker, like sliding doors, those two different avenues, I knew if I didn't do this, the burden I would leave behind, the repercussions that I would leave behind for my children. And you know what? Not just my children, the next generation of children. You might not have children, but you know there is another generation now growing up, and they are going to have the most financial burden that our world has ever seen. They are growing up in debt, and they're children. They're innocent children. The debt is going to be passed on to them from their parents. They're going to have to take care of their parents when their parents are in their 50s and 60s because of the health issues that's happening now. People are damaging their bodies with health issues. That's going to see them they're not going to be able to work when they're 40, 50, 60. They're not going to be able to work because of the health problems that they're facing. And that burden is going to sit on the next generation. So when I was sat on Emma's sofa in her house with my coffee machine coffee, I thought, I've got two paths here. I do this business, I roll my sleeves up and I get to work. I use these products and I share the stories of what the products have done for me. Or I say no to this, and I know that the consequences of my actions are going to punish the next generation because I was lazy, because I had the fear, because I was scared of the unknown, because I didn't want to talk to somebody about a product that actually then went on to help my child's skin, that helped my autoimmune, that helped my husband's autoimmune, that helped his energy, that's helped my husband start his own business because he's got the energy to do it and he's got the financial backing to do it because of this business, because of Arbonne. So, you know, when you're sat there and you think to yourself, where am I going with my life? I want you to think about these two different avenues and the impact it's having on the next generation, because sometimes we can be really selfish and just see the now. I've been there, and sometimes I catch myself doing it all the time, and then I have to catch myself and say, this isn't about me, this is about the next generation that are growing up with poor health, with more financial debt, stress and burden than has ever been known before. You know, 30, 40 years ago, to lead an average middle class family lifestyle, a family of 4 needed one income to come in, and that one income was usually the dad. That one income would financially support a family of 4. 20 years ago, to lead a typical middle class family lifestyle, family of 4, you needed 2 incomes coming in. So that was when mum and dad usually went to work there. Fast forward to now, to lead an average middle class family lifestyle, family of 4, you need 3 incomes coming in. That's why most people now, smart people, have got a side hustle. The next generation are going to need 4 incomes. 4 incomes. They're going to need 4 incomes. They're going to be looking after the next generation down, their children, maybe grandchildren, and they're going to be looking after their parents and their grandparents. They are going to be in an absolute sandwich shitstorm. They're going to need 4 incomes. They're going to be looking after their parents, their grandparents, and their children. And they're going to look at you. This is what would have been to me if I'd said no to this. They're going to look at you and they're going to say, you do know that my friends' parents said yes to Arbonne. They rolled their sleeves up, they got to work, and they created the financial asset income that they're not in the situation that we're in because you didn't say yes to this business, because you wanted to watch Netflix, because you were scared of talking to people about a phenomenal mascara, because you were scared to actually roll your sleeves up and get to work. Like, that's what my kids would have said to me, and I couldn't have faced that. I couldn't have faced that. So when people say to me, Danny, were you scared when you started this business 5 years ago? I was terrified. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no confidence. I didn't know what to say. I was worried about what people might say. I had the fear. I had all of it. I had everything that everybody else has. But I kept thinking about the next generation. And I kept thinking, if I don't do this, if I give in to the fear, I am knowingly leaving that burden on them. At least our older generations didn't knowingly leave the burden on us. They didn't know. They didn't know. It's not their fault. But we know. We know where things are heading. We're knowingly making choices every single day to leave this burden on the next generation or to take it away from the next generation. So every day I get up and I roll my sleeves up and I do some of my business because I am not going to be one of the people that knowingly left that burden on the next generation. So that's my story. Don't know if I've ever shared that before, but I'll just say this final thought. If you're doing something now that is going to take that financial burden off the next generation, good for you. If it's network marketing, to be honest, that's probably the smartest way to be doing things, good for you. If it's property, also very smart, brilliant. If it's writing a book and that book's being sold on Amazon every single day and 10,000 copies a day are being bought, brilliant. Royalty income is where it's at. Building that asset income, brilliant. But if you're not, why not? And can you live with yourself in 30 years' time when the next generation say you're one of the people that didn't take up an opportunity to relieve the burden, the financial burden and the health problems from us? Because I know that I can't. And that is exactly what gets me telling this story about this business that I do and these products that I have every single day. So, little final thought for you there.